The Poetry of South Africa. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Larry Wilson. The Poetry of South Africa by Alexander Wilmot. Preface. This collection of verse has been made from various sources in the Cape Colony, Natal, and the Transvaal, and it is a matter of regret that many pieces of interest have been omitted owing to the difficulty of obtaining copies. Also, as most colonists in South Africa understand the Dutch language as spoken there, it could be wished that certain well-known productions in the Boerentaal could have been preserved in these pages. Some of the inimitable versions of Wright's, for instance, his rendering of Tam O'Shanter and the Mind of Athens, and some others which have appeared from time to time, we believe, in one of the Cape journals, ought not to be forgotten. We have received from Natal, since this volume was in the press, some lines by the late T. Fannin, who used in the olden days to sing his own rhymes in right good style. We do not apologize to our readers for giving these in their entirety. The Smouse. I'm a smouse, I'm a smouse, in the wilderness wide. The veld is my home, and the waggon's my pride. The crack of my vorslag shall sound o'er the lea. I'm a smouse, and the trader is free. I heed not the governor, I fear not his law. I care not for civilization one straw, and ne'er to Umpanda, Umgazi's I'll while my arm carries fist, or my foot bears a toe. Trek, trek, ply the whip, touch the fore oxen's skin. I'll warrant we'll go it through thick and through thin. Loop, loop, ye old skellums, at Vigman trek ye. I'm a smouse, and the trader is free. They may talk of quick going by mail or rail. What matters? Our wagon creeps on like a snail. What to her is the steam engine's whistle and din? We have time all before, and the prog all within. The snows of Katlumba our progress can't stay. We mount to its summit and travel away. Or we go by Biggersburg, wagon upset. The tent lies in atoms, the stuff is all wet. Never mind, that won't hurt us, we'll soon get it dry. But ho, there go elands. Saddle up, boys, mount, fly. Load your rifles, give chase as they bound o'er the lea. I'm a smouse, and the trader is free. I'm alone, and 'tis night on the plain. And I think, as I lie, of old England again. The jackal cries round me, the wolf quits his lair, and the roar of the lions resounds through the air. Alamagtig, cries Jansi, Bawo, cries Kewet. The cattle stand trembling, the smouse on his feet. My Lancaster rings while the brute gives a bound, and the king of the desert lies dead on the ground. Hurrah, then! What care I for king or for prince? My horse and my gun are my pride and defense. The town for the coward, the desert for me. I'm a smouse, and the trader is free. All is changed since these lines were written, and since Pringle, the father of South African verse, sang amid the wild surroundings of his home. The whistle of the locomotive has taken the place of the shrill cry of the Kaffir. The lion has retired from business. The big game which used to cover the plains beyond the Drakensberg has gone, never to return. And the wandering trader has to pay taxes, and is no longer in need of a gun. The railway from Delagoa Bay to the Portuguese border is almost completed. Soon excursions to Ophir will be advertised, and the romance of the Dark Continent will be dead. There is little time for thought or rest in a country which can show a town risen up, as by Aladdin's power, in a few short months, holding 5,000 people, all gathered together for one object, gold. Still, and in spite of all this, we hope our modest volume may not be wholly neglected, but will find a welcome in many a home. There must be intervals of refreshment, however transient, for both body and mind, even in a world where the go-as-you-please race for wealth engages everybody, and we trust that many colonists will find something in these pages to satisfy their tastes, even if it be only a reminder of the days when their fathers were young, and ventured over the sea to make for themselves homes in untrodden wilds. 24th September, 1887. End of Preface.
The Emigrants by Thomas Pringle, Huntshaw, September 20, 1819. Read for LibriVox.org by J. L. Baldwin. The sire has told the heart-struck group of dark disaster nigh, their old paternal home must now be sold, and that last relic of ancestry resigned to strangers. Long and strenuously he strove to stem the flood's o'erwhelming mass, but still some fresh unseen calamity burst like a foaming billow, till, alas, no hope remains that this their sorest grief may pass. Yet be not thus dismayed. Our altered lot He that ordains will brace us to endure. This changeful world affords no sheltered spot where man may count his frail possessions sure. Our better birthright, noble, precious, pure, may well console for earthly treasures marred. Treasures, alas, how vain and insecure, where none from rust and robbery can guard! The wise man looks to heaven alone for his reward. The Christian father thus: but whither now shall the bewildered band their course direct? What home shall shield that matron's honored brow, and those dear pensive maids from wrong protect, or cheer them 'mid the world's unkind neglect? That world, to the unfortunate so cold, while lavish of its smiles and fair respect unto the proud, the prosperous, the bold, still shunning want and woe, still courting pomp and gold, shall they adopt the poor retainer's trade, and sue for pity from the great and proud? No, never shall ungenerous souls upbraid their conduct in adversity, which bowed but not debased them; or amidst the crowd in noisome towns shall they themselves immure their wounds, their woes, their weary days to shroud in some mean melancholy nook obscure? No, worthier tasks await, and brighter scenes allure. A land of climate fair and fertile soil, teeming with milk and wine and waving corn, invites from far the venturous Briton's toil, and thousands, long by fruitless cares forsworn, and now across the wide Atlantic borne, to seek new homes on Afric's southern strand. Better to launch with them, than sink forlorn to vile dependence in our native land. Better to fall in God's than man's unfeeling hand. With hearts resigned they tranquilly prepare to share the fortunes of that exiled train, and soon with many a follower forth they fare, high hope and courage in their hearts again. And now, afloat upon the dark blue main, they gaze upon the fast receding shore with tearful eyes, while thus the ballad strain, half heard amidst the ocean's weltering roar, bids farewell to the scenes they ne'er shall visit more. Our native land, our native vale, a long and last adieu! Farewell to bonny Teviotdale and Cheviot mountains blue! Farewell, ye hills of glorious deeds, and streams renowned in song! Farewell, ye blithesome braes and meads our hearts have loved so long! Farewell, ye broomy elfin knowes, where thyme and harebells grow! Farewell, ye hoary haunted howes, o'erhung with birk and sloe! The battle mound, the border tower, that Scotia's annals tell, the martyr's grave, the lover's bower, to each, to all, farewell! Home of our hearts, our fathers' home, land of the brave and free, the sail is flapping on the foam that bears us far from thee. We seek a wild and distant shore beyond the Atlantic main. We leave thee to return no more, nor view thy cliffs again. But may dishonor blight our fame and quench our household fires, when we or ours forget thy name, green island of our sires. Our native land, our native vale, a long, a last adieu! Farewell to bonny Teviotdale and Scotland's mountains blue. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Section 2 of Poetry of South Africa. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Bechuana Boy by Thomas Pringle. Read for LibriVox.org by J. L. Baldwin. I sat at noontide in my tent, and looked across the desert dun, beneath the cloudless firmament far gleaming in the sun, when from the bosom of the waste a swarthy stripling came in haste, with foot unshod and naked limb, and a tame springbok followed him. With open aspect, frank yet bland, and with a modest mien he stood, caressing with a gentle hand that beast of gentle brood. Then, meekly gazing in my face, said in the language of his race, with smiling look yet pensive tone, "Stranger, I'm in the world alone." "Poor boy," I said, "thy native home lies far beyond the Stormberg blue. Why hast thou left it, boy, to roam this desolate Karroo?" His face grew sadder while I spoke, the smile forsook it, and he broke Short silence with a sob like sigh, and told his hapless history. "I have no home," replied the boy. "The Bergenars, by night they came, and raised their wolfish howl of joy, While o'er our huts the flame resistless rushed, and aye their yell pealed louder as our warriors fell in heapless heaps beneath their shot. One living man they left us not. The slaughter o'er, they gave the slain to feast the foul beaked birds of prey, And with our herds across the plain they hurried us away, the widowed mothers and their brood. Oft in despair for drink or food we vainly cried, they heeded not, but with sharp lash the captive smote. 3 days we tracked that dreary wild, where thirst and anguish pressed us sore, And many a mother and her child lay down to rise no more. Behind us on the desert brown we saw the vultures swooping down, And heard, as the grim night was falling, the wolf to his gorged comrade calling. At length was heard a river sounding midst that dry and dismal land, And like a troop of wild deer bounding we hurried to its strand. Among the maddened cattle rushing, the crowd behind still forward pushing, Till in the flood our limbs were drenched, and the fierce rage of thirst was quenched. Hoarse roaring, dark, the broad Gariep in turbid streams was sweeping fast, Huge sea cows in its eddies deep loud snorting as we passed. But that relentless robber clan, right through those waters wild and wan, Drove on like sheep our wearied band, some never reached the farther strand. All shivering from the foaming flood we stood upon the strangers' ground, When, with proud looks and gestures rude, the white men gathered round. And there, like cattle from the fold, by Christians we were bought and sold, Midst laughter loud and looks of scorn, and roughly from each other torn. My mother's screams, so long and shrill, my little sister's wailing cry, In dreams I often hear them still, rose wildly to the sky. A tiger's heart came to me then, and fiercely on those ruthless men I sprang. Alas, dashed on the sand, bleeding, they bound me foot and hand. Away, away on prancing steeds the stout man stealers blithely go, Through long, low valleys fringed with reeds, o'er mountains capped with snow, Each with his captive, far and fast, Until yon rock bound ridge we passed, And distant strips of cultured soil bespoke the land of tears and toil. And tears and toil have been my lot since I the white man's thrall became, And sorer griefs I wish forgot, harsh blows and scorn and shame. O Englishman, thou ne'er canst know the injured bondman's bitter woe, When round his breast like scorpions cling Black thoughts that madden while they sting. Yet this hard fate I might have borne, And taught in time my soul to bend, Had my sad yearning heart forlorn But found a single friend. My race extinct or far removed, The Boer's rough brood I could have loved, But, each to whom my bosom turned, Even like a hound the black boy spurned. While friendless thus my master's flocks I tended on the upland waste, It chanced this fawn leapt from the rocks, By wolfish wild dogs chased. I rescued it, though wounded sore, And dabbled in its mother's gore, And nursed it in a cavern wild Until it loved me like a child. Gently I nursed it, for I thought Its hapless fate so like to mine, By good Utiko it was brought To bid me not repine. Since in this world of wrong and ill One creature lived that loved me still, Although its dark and dazzling eye Beamed not with human sympathy. Thus lived I, a lone orphan lad, My task the proud Boer's flocks to tend, And this poor fawn was all I had To love or call my friend, When, suddenly, with haughty look And taunting words, that tyrant took My playmate for his pampered boy, Who envied me my only joy. High swelled my heart, but when the star Of midnight gleamed, I softly led My bounding favorite forth, and far Into the desert fled. And here, from humankind exiled, 3 moons on roots and berries wild I've fared, and braved the beasts of prey To 'scape from spoilers worse than they. But yestermorn a Bushman brought The tiding that thy tents were near, And now with hasty foot I've sought Thy presence, void of fear. Because they say, O English chief, thou scornest not the captive's grief, then let me serve thee as thine own, for I am in the world alone. Such was Morossi's touching tale. Our breasts, they were not made of stone. His words, his winning looks prevail. We took him for our own. And one, with woman's gentle art, unlocked the fountains of his heart, and love gushed forth, till he became her child in everything but name. Thomas Pringle. End of section 2.
Section 3 of The Poetry of South Africa. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Jason Paul. Afar in the Desert by Thomas Pringle. Afar in the desert I love to ride, with the silent bush boy alone by my side, where the sorrows of life the soul overcast, and sick of the present I cling to the past, when the eye is suffused with regretful tears from the fond recollection of former years, and shadows of things that have long since fled flit over the brain like the ghosts of the dead. Bright visions of glory that vanished too soon, daydreams that departed ere manhood's noon, attachments by fate or by falsehood reft, companions of early days, lost or left, and my native land, whose magical name thrills to the heart like electric flame, the home of my childhood, the haunts of my prime, all the passions and scenes of that rapturous time, when the feelings were young and the world was new, like the fresh flowers of Eden unfolding to view, all now forsaken, forgotten, foregone. And I, a lone exile remembered by none, my high aims abandoned, my good acts undone, aweary of all that is under the sun, with that sadness of heart which no stranger may scan, I fly to the desert, afar from man. Afar in the desert I love to ride, with the silent bush boy alone by my side, when the wind turmoil of this wearisome life, with its scenes of oppression, corruption, and strife, the proud man's frown and the base man's fear, the scorner's laugh and the sufferer's tear, and malice and meanness and falsehood and folly, dispose me to musing and dark melancholy. When my bosom is full, and my thoughts are high, and my soul is sick with the bondsman's sigh, oh, then there is freedom and joy and pride, afar in the desert alone to ride. There is rapture to vaunt on the champing steed, and to bound away with the eagle's speed, with the death-fraught firelock in my hand, the only law in the desert land. Afar in the desert I love to ride, with the silent bush boy alone by my side, away, away from the dwellings of men, by the wild deer's haunt, by the buffalo's glen, by valleys remote where the oribi plays, where the gnu, the gazelle, and the hartebeest graze, and the kudu and eland unhunted recline, by the skirts of grey forest o'erhung with wild vine, where the elephant browses at peace in his wood, and the river horse gambols unscared in the flood, and the mighty rhinoceros wallows at will in the fen, where the wild ass is drinking his fill. Afar in the desert I love to ride, with the silent bush boy alone by my side, o'er the brown karoo, where the bleating cry of the spring box fawn sounds plaintively, and the timorous quagga's shrill whistling neigh is heard by the fountain at twilight grey, where the zebra wantonly tosses his mane, with wild hoofs scouring the desolate plain, and the fleet-footed ostrich over the waste speeds like a horseman who travels in haste, hieing away to the home of her rest, where she and her mate have scooped their nest, far hid from the pitiless plunderer's view, in the pathless depths of the parched karoo. Afar in the desert I love to ride, with the silent bush boy alone by my side, away, away in the wilderness vast, where the white man's foot hath never passed, and the quivered coroner or Vetch hath rarely crossed with his roving clan. A region of emptiness, howling and drear, which man hath abandoned from famine and fare, which the snake and the lizard inhabit alone, with the twilight bat from the yawning stone, where grass nor herb nor shrub takes root, save poisonous thorns that pierce the foot, and the bitter melon for food and drink is the pilgrim's fare by the salt lake's brink, a region of drought, where no river glides, nor rippling brook with ossered sides, where sedgy pool, nor bubbling fount, nor tree, nor cloud, nor misty mount appears to refresh the aching eye, but the barren earth, and the burning sky, and the blank horizon round and round, spread, void of living sight and sound, and here, while the night winds round me sigh, and the stars burn bright in the midnight sky, as I sit apart by the desert stone, like Elijah at Orib's cave alone, a still, small voice comes through the wild, like a father consoling his fretful child, which banishes bitterness, wrath, and fear, saying, "Man is distant, but God is near." End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Section 4 of Poetry of South Africa. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Evening Rambles. Read for LibriVox.org by Robert Schwartz. The sultry summer noon is past, and mellow evenings comes at last, with a low and languid breeze, fanning the mimosa trees, that cluster o'er the yellow vale, and oft perfume the panting gale. With fragrance faint, it seems to tell, our primrose tufts in Scottish dell, peeping forth in tender spring, when the blithe lark begins to sing. But soon, amidst our Libyan vale, such soothing recollections fail. Soon we raise the eye to range o'er prospects wild, grotesque, and strange, sterile mountains rough and steep, that bound abrupt the valley deep, having to the clear blue sky their ribs of granite bare and dry, and ridges by the torrents worn, thinly streaking with scraggy thorn, which fringes nature's savage dress, yet scarce relieves her nakedness. But where the vale winds deep below, the landscape hath a warmer glow. There the speckboom spreads its bowers of light green leaves and lilac flowers, and the aloe rears her crimson crest, like stately queen for gala dressed. And the bright blossomed bean tree shakes its coral tufts above the brakes, brilliant as the glancing plumes of sugar birds amongst its blooms, with the deep green verdure bending in the stream of light descending, and now along the grassy meads where the skipping rhebok feeds. Let me through the mazes rove of the light acacia grove, now, while yet the honey bee hums around the blossomed tree, and the turtles softly chide, wooingly on every side. And the clucking pheasant calls to his mates at intervals, and the diker at my tread suddenly lifts his startled head, then dives affrighted in the brake, like wild duck in the reedy lake. My wonted seat receives me now, this cliff with my myrtle tuft brow, towering high o'er grove and stream, as if to greet the parting gleam. With shattered rocks besprinkled o'er, behind ascends the mountain hoar, whose crest o'erhangs the Bushman's cave, his fortress once, and now his grave, where the grim satired faced baboon sits gibbering on the rising moon, or chides with hoarse and angry cry the herdsman as he wanders by. Spread out below in sun and shade, the shaggy glen lies full displayed, its sheltered nooks, its sylvan bowers, its meadows flushed with purple flowers. And through it like a dragon spread, I trace the river's tortuous bed. Lo! there the shaldy willow weeps, drooping o'er the headlong steeps, where the torrent in his wrath hath rifted him a rugged path, like fissure cleft by earthquake's shock, through mead and jungle, mound and rock. But the swollen water's wasteful sway, like tyrant's rage, hath passed away, and left the ravage of its course, memorial of its frantic force. Now o'er its shrunk and slimy bed, rank weeds and withered wrack are spread, with the faint rill just oozing through, and vanishing again from view, save where the guana's glassy pool holds to some cliff its mirror cool, girthed by the plamite's leafy screen, or graceful rock ash tall and green, whose slender sprays above the flood suspend the loxia's callow brood, in cradle nests with perch below, secure from winged or creeping foe, weasel or hawk, or writhing snake, light swinging as the breezes wake, like the ripe fruit we love to see upon the rich pomegranate tree. But lo! the sun's descending car sinks o'er Mount Dunion's peaks afar, and now along the dusky vale the homeward herds and flocks I hail, returning from their pastures dry amid the stony uplands high. First the brown herder with his flock comes winding round my hermit rock. His mien and gait and gesture tell no shepherd he from Scottish fell, for crook the guardian gun he bears, for plaid the sheepskin mantle wears. Sauntering languidly along, nor flute has he, nor merry song, nor book, nor tale, nor rustic lay, to cheer him through his listless day. His look is dull, his soul is dark, he feels not hope's electric spark, but born the white man's servile thrall, knows that he cannot lower fall. Next the stout, neat herd passes by, with bolder step and blither eye, humming low his tuneless song, or whistling to the horned throng. From the destroying foeman fled, he serves the colonist for bread, yet this poor heathen Bechuan bears on his brow the port of man. A naked homeless exile he, but not debased by slavery. Now, wizard-like, slow twilight sails, with soundless wing, adown the vales, waving with his shadowy rod the owl and bat to come abroad, with things that hate the garish sun, to frolic now when day is done. Now along the meadows damp the enamored firefly lights his lamp, like boy he of woodland green, to light fair Avon's elfin queen. Here I ween, more wont to shine, to light the thievish porcupine, plundering my melon bed, or villain lynx, whose stealthy tread rouses not the wakeful hound, as he creeps the folds around. But lo, the night bird's bonding scream breaks abrupt my twilight dream, and warns me it is time to haste my homeward walk across the waste, lest me rash step provoke the wrath of adder coiled upon the path, or tempt the lion from the wood that soon will prowl athirst for blood. Thus murmuring my thoughtful strain, I seek our wattled cot again. Thomas Pringle, Glen Linden, 1822. End of section 4.
Section 5 of The Poetry of South Africa. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Jason Paul. The Lion Hunt by Thomas Pringle. Mount, mount for the hunting with musket and spear. Call our friends to the field, for the lion is near. Call Arendt and Eckert and Hrup to the spoor. Call Muller and Kutzer and Lucas van Veer. Ride up Eilden Cleugh and blow loudly the bugle. Call Slinger and Ali and Dicko and Dougal and George with the elephant gun on his shoulder. In a perilous pinch, none is better or bolder. In the gorge of the glen lie the bones of my steed, and the hoof of a heifer of Fatherland's breed. But mount, my brave boys, if our rifles prove true, we'll soon make the spoiler his ravages rue. Ho! The Hottentot lads have discovered the track. To his den in the desert we'll follow him back. But tighten your girths, and look well to your flints, for heavy and fresh are the villain's footprints. Through the rough rocky kloof into grey Huntly glen, past the wild olive clump where the wolf has his den, by the black eagle's rock at the foot of the fell, we have tracked him at last to the buffalo's well. Now mark yonder brake where the bloodhounds are howling, and hark that hoarse sound, like the deep thunder growling. 'Tis his lair, 'tis his voice. From your saddles alight, he's at bay in the brushwoods preparing for fight. Leave the horses behind, and be still every man. Let the Mullers and Rennies advance in the van. Keep fast in your ranks by the yell of yon hound. The savage, I guess, will be out with a bound. He comes, the tall jungle before him loud crashing, his mane bristled fiercely, his fiery eyes flashing. With a roar of disdain he leaps forth in his wrath, to challenge the foe that dare leaguer his path. He couches. Now we'll see mischief I dread. Quick, level your rifles and aim at his head. Thrust forward the spears and unsheath every knife. St. George, he's upon us. Now fire, lads, for life. He's wounded, but yet he'll draw blood ere he falls. Ha! Under his paw, see, Bezudenhut sprawls. Now, Dietrich, Christian, right in the brain, plant each man his bullet. Hurrah! He is slain. Bezudenhut, up, man, 'tis only a scratch. You're always a scamp, and have met with your match. What a glorious lion, what sinews, what claws, and 7 feet 10 from the rump to the jaws. His hide, with the paws and the bones of his skull, with the spoils of the leopard and buffalo bull, we'll send to Sir Walter. Now, boys, let us dine, and talk of our deeds o'er a flask of old wine. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Lion and the Giraffe by Thomas Pringle. Read for LibriVox.org by Nemo. Wouldst thou view the lion's den? Search afar from haunts of men, where the reed-encircled rill oozes from the rocky hill, by its verdure far descried, mid the desert brown and wide. Close beside the sedgy brim, couchant lurks the lion grim, watching till the close of day brings the death-devoted prey. Heedless at the ambushed brink, the tall giraffe stoops down to drink. Upon him straight the savage springs with cruel joy. The desert rings with clanging sound of desperate strife. The prey is strong and he strives for life, plunging oft with frantic bound to shake the tyrant to the ground. He shrieks, he rushes through the waste, with glaring eye and headlong haste. In vain the spoiler on his prize rides proudly, tearing as he flies. For life, the victim's utmost speed is mustered in this hour of need. For life, his giant might he strains and pours his soul in flight, and mad with terror, thirst, and pain, spurns with wild hoof the thundering plain. 'Tis vain, the thirsty sands are drinking his streaming blood, his strength is sinking. The victor's fangs are in his veins, his flanks are streaked with sanguine stains. His panting breast in foaming gore is bathed, he reels, his race is o'er. He falls, and, with convulsive throe, resigns his throat to the ravening foe. And lo, ere quivering life has fled, the vultures, wheeling overhead, swoop down to watch in gaunt array, till the gorged tyrant quits his prey. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Section 7 of the Poetry of South Africa. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Desolate Valley. Read by Mark Crowell Groves. Far up among the forest-belted mountains, where Winterberg's stern giant old and grey looks down the subject dells whose gleaming fountains to wizard cat their virgin tribute pay, a valley opens to the noontide ray, with green savannas shelving to the brim, of the swift river sweeping on its way to where Umtoka tries to meet with him, like a blue serpent gliding through the acacias dim. Round this secluded region circling rise are billowy wastes of mountains wild and wide, upon whose grassy slopes the pilgrim spies the gnu and quagga by the greenwood side, tossing their shaggy manes in tameless pride, or troop of elands near some sedgy fount, or kudu fawns that from the thicket glide to seek their dam upon the misty mount, with harts, gazelles, and roes, more than the eye can count. And as we journeyed up the pathless glen, flanked by romantic hills on either hand, the boschbok oft would bound away, and then, beside the willows, backward gazing stand. And where old forests darken all the land, from rocky Kalberg to the river's brink, the buffalo would start upon the strand, where mid palmetto flags he stooped to drink, and crashing through the brakes to the deep jungle shrink. Then, couched at night in hunter's wattled shieling, how wildly beautiful it was to hear the elephant his shrill reveille pealing, like some far signal trumpet on the ear, while the broad midnight moon was shining clear. How fearful to look forth upon the woods, and see those stately forest kings appear, emerging from their shadowy solitudes, as if that trump had woke earth's old gigantic broods. Such the majestic melancholy scene, which midst the mountain wilderness we found, with scarce a trace to tell where man had been, save the old Kaffir cabins crumbling round, Yet this lone glen, Sicana's ancient ground, to nature's savage tribes abandoned long, had heard erewhile the gospel's joyful sound, and low of herds mixed with the Sabbath song. But all is silent now, the oppressor's hand was strong. Now the blithe loxia hangs her pensile nest from the wild olive bending o'er a rock, beneath whose shadow in grave mantle dressed the Christian pastor taught his swarthy flock. A roofless ruin, scathed by flame and smoke, tells where a decent mission chapel stood, while a baboon with jabbering cry doth mock the pilgrim pausing in his pensive mood, to ask, why is it thus? Shall evil baffle good? Yes, for a season Satan may prevail, and hold as if secure his dark domain. The prayers of righteous men may seem to fail, and heaven's glad tidings be proclaimed in vain. But wait in faith ere long shall spring again that seed that seemed to perish in the ground, and fertilized by Zion's latter rain, the long parched land shall laugh with harvests crowned, and through those silent wastes Jehovah's praise resound. Look round that vale, behold the unburied bones of Goner's children withering in the blast. The sobbing wind, that through the forest moans, whispers, the spirit hath forever passed. Thus in the vale of desolation vast, in moral death dark Afric's myriads lie. But the appointed day shall dawn at last, when breathed on by a spirit from on high, the dry bones shall awake and shout, our God is nigh. Thomas Pringle. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Coroner by Thomas Pringle, read for LibriVox.org by Gary Day. Fast by his wild resounding river the listless coron lingers ever, still drives his heifers forth to feed, soothed by the gorrah's humming reed. A rover still unchecked will range, as humour calls or seasons change, his tent of mats and leathern gear all packed upon the patient steer. Mid all his wanderings hating toil, he never tills the stubborn soil, but on the milky dams relies, and what spontaneous earth supplies. Should some long parching droughts prevail, and milk and bulbs and locusts fail, he lays him down to sleep away in languid trance the weary day. Oft as he feels gaunt hunger's stound, still tightening famine's girdle round, lulled by the sound of the gareep, beneath the willows murmuring deep, till thunder clouds, surcharged with rain, pour verdure o'er the panting plain, and call the famished dreamer from his trance to feast on milk and game, and wake the moonlight dance. Thomas Pringle. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Song of the Wild Bushman by Thomas Pringle, read for LibriVox.org by Nemo. Let the proud white man boast his flocks in fields of foodful grain. My home is mid the mountain rocks, the desert my domain. I plant no herbs nor pleasant fruits, I toil not for my cheer. The desert yields me juicy roots, and herds of bounding deer. The countless springboks are my flock, spread o'er the unbounded plain. The buffalo bendeth to my yoke, the wild horse to my rein. My yoke is the quivering assegai, my rein the tough bowstring. My bridle curb a slender barb, yet it quells the forest king. The crested adder honoureth me, and yields at my command his poisoned bag, like the honey bee, when I seize him on the sand. Yea, even the wasting locust swarm, which mighty nations dread, to me nor terror brings nor harm, for I make of them my bread. Thus I am lord of the desert land, and I will not leave my bounds to crouch beneath the Christian's hand and kennel with his hounds. to be a hound and watch the flocks for the cruel white man's gain? No, the brown serpent of the rocks his den doth yet retain, and none who there his stings provokes shall find his poison vain. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Captive of Camelot by Thomas Pringle, read for LibriVox.org by Gary Day. O Camelot, green Camelot, 'twas there I fed my father's flock, beside the mount where cedars threw at dawn their shadows from the rock. There tended I my father's flock along the grassy margined rills, or chased the bounding bontebok with hound and spear among the hills. Green Camelot, methinks I view the lilies in thy meadows growing. I see thy waters bright and blue beneath the pale-leaved willows flowing. I hear along the valleys lowing the heifers wending to the fold, and jocund herd-boys loudly blowing the horn to mimic hunters bold. Methinks I see the umkoba tree that shades the village chieftain's cot. The evening smoke curls lovingly above that calm and pleasant spot. My father? Ha! I had forgot. The old man rests in slumber deep. My mother? Ay, she answers not. Her heart is hushed in dreamless sleep. My brothers too, green Camelot, repose they by thy quiet tide? Ay, there they sleep, where white men slew and left them lying side by side. No pity had those men of pride. They fired the huts above the dying, while bones bestrew that valley wide. I wish that mine were with them lying. I envy you by Camelot, ye wild hearts on the woody hills. Though tigers there their prey pursue, and vultures slake in blood their bills, the heart may strive in nature's ills, to nature's common doom resigned. Death the frail body only kills, but thraldom brutifies the mind. O wretched fate, heart desolate, a captive in the spoiler's hand, to serve the tyrant whom I hate, to crouch beneath his proud command, upon my flesh to bear his brand, his blows, his bitter scorn to bide. Would God I in my native land had with my slaughtered brothers died. Ye mountains blue of Camelot, where once I fed my father's flock, though desolation dwells with you, and Amakosa's heart is broke, yet, spite of chains these limbs that mock, my homeless heart to you doth fly, as flies the wild dove to the rock, to hide its wounded breast and die. Yet, ere my spirit wings its flight unto death's silent shadowy clime, Utiko, lord of life and light, who, high above the clouds of time, calm sittest where yon hosts sublime of stars wheel around thy bright abode, O let my cry unto thee climb, of every race the Father God. I ask not judgments from thy hand, destroying hail or parching drought, or locust swarms to waste the land, or pestilence by famine bought. I say the prayer Jankanna taught, who wept for Amakosa's wrongs. Thy kingdom come, thy will be wrought, for unto thee all power belongs. Thy kingdom come, let light and grace throughout all lands in triumph go, till pride and strife to live give place, and blood and tears forget to flow, till Europe mourn for Africa's woe, and o'er the deep her arms extend, to lift her where she lieth low, and prove indeed her Christian friend. Thomas Pringle. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. The Brown Hunter's Song by Thomas Pringle, read for LibriVox.org by Gary Day. Under the Didyma lies a green dell, where fresh from the forest the blue waters swell, and fast by that brook stands a yellow wood tree, which shelters the spot which is dearest to me. Down by the streamlet my heifers are grazing, in the pool of the guanas the herd boy is gazing. Under the shade my amana is singing, the shade of the tree where her cradle is swinging. When I come from the upland as daylight is fading, though spent with the chase and the game for my lading, my nerves are new strung and my fond heart is swelling, as I gaze from the cliff on our wood-circled dwelling. Down the steep mountain and through the brown forest I haste like a hart when his thirst is the sorest. I bound o'er the swift brook that skirts the savannah, and clasp my firstborn in the arms of Amana. Thomas Pringle. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Bushman by Thomas Pringle. Read for LibriVox.org by Nemo. The Bushman sleeps within his black-browed den in the lone wilderness. Around him lie his wife and little ones unfearingly, for they are far away from Christian men. No herds, loud lowing, call him down the glen. He fears no foe but famine, and may try to wear away the hot noon slumberingly, then rise to search for roots, and dance again. But he shall dance no more. His secret lair, surrounded, echoes to the thundering gun, and the wild shriek of anguish and despair. He dies, yet, ere life's ebbing sands are run, leaves to his sons a curse, should they be friends with the proud Christian men, for they are fiends. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Cape of Storms by Thomas Pringle. Read for LibriVox.org by Gary Day. O Cape of Storms, although thy front be dark, and bleak thy naked cliffs and cheerless vales, and perilous thy fierce and faithless gales to staunchest mariner and stoutest bark, and though along thy coasts with grief I mark the servile and the slave, and him who wails an exile's lot, and blush to hear thy tales of sin and sorrow and oppression stark, yet, spite of physical and moral ill, and after all I've seen and suffered here, there are strong links that bind me to thee still, and render even thy rocks and deserts dear. Here dwell kind hearts, which time nor place can chill, loving kindred and congenial friends sincere. Thomas Pringle, 1825. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. The Hottentot by Thomas Pringle. Read for LibriVox.org by Gary Day. Mild, melancholy, and sedate he stands, tending another's flock upon the fields. His father's once, where now the white man builds his home and issues forth his proud commands. His dark eye flashes not, his listless hands lean on the shepherd's staff. No more he wields the Libyan bow, but to the oppressor yields submissively his freedom and his lands. Has he no courage? Once he had, but lo, harsh servitude hath worn him to the bone. No enterprise? Alas, the brand, the blow, hath humbled him to dust. Even hope is gone. He's a base-hearted hound, not worth his food, his master cries. He has no gratitude. Thomas Pringle, 1825. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. The Kaffir by Thomas Pringle. Read for LibriVox.org by Gary Day. Lo, where he crouches by the kloof's dark side, eyeing the farmer's lowing herds afar, impatient watching till the evening star leads forth the twilight dim, that he may glide like panther to the prey. With freeborn pride he scorns the herdsman, nor regards the scar of recent wound, but burnishes for war his assegai and targe of buffalo hide. He is a robber? True, it is a strife between the black-skinned bandit and the white. A savage? Yes, though loth to aim at life, evil for evil fierce he doth requite. A heathen? Teach him then thy better creed, Christian, if thou deservest that name indeed. Thomas Pringle. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Ghana Widow's Lullaby by Thomas Pringle. Read for LibriVox.org by Kirby Wheatland. The storm hath ceased, yet still I hear the distant thunder sounding, and from the mountains, far and near, the headlong torrents bounding. The jackal shrieks upon the rocks, the tiger wolf is howling, the panther round the folded flocks with stifled grrr is prowling. But lay thee down in peace, my child, God watcheth o'er us midst the wild. I fear the Bushman is abroad, he loves the midnight thunder, the sheeted lightning shows the road that leads his feet to plunder. I'd rather meet the hooded snake than hear his rattling quiver, when, like an adder, through the brake he glides along the river. But, darling, hush thy heart to sleep, the Lord our shepherd watch doth keep. The Kosa from Luheri high looks down upon our dwelling, and shakes the vengeful assegai, unto his clansmen telling how he, for us, by grievous wrong hath lost these fertile valleys, and boasts that now his hand is strong to pay the debt of malice. But sleep, my child, a mightier arm shall shield thee, helpless one, from harm. The moon is up, a fleecy cloud o'er heaven's blue deep is sailing. The stream that lately raved so loud makes now a gentle wailing. From yonder crags, lit by the moon, I hear a wild voice crying. 'Tis but the harmless bear baboon, unto his mates replying. Hush, hush thy dreams, my moaning dove, and slumber in the arms of love. The wolf, scared by the watchdog's bay, is to the woods returning. By his rock fortress far away the Bushman's fire is burning. And hark! Sakana's midnight hymn along the valley swelling calls us to stretch the wearied limb while kinsmen guard our dwelling. Though vainly watchmen wake from sleep, unless the Lord the city keep. At dawn we'll seek, with songs of praise, our food on the savannah, as Israel sought in ancient days the heaven-descending manna. With gladness from the fertile land the veldkost we will gather, a harvest planted by the hand of the Almighty Father. From thraldom who redeems our race to plant them in their ancient place. Then let us calmly rest, my child, Jehovah's arm is round us, the God, the Father reconciled, in heathen gloom who found us, who to this heart by sorrow broke, his wondrous word revealing, led me, a lost sheep, to the flock, and to the fount of healing. Oh, may the Saviour shepherd lead my darling where his lambs do feed. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Kosa by Thomas Pringle. Read for LibriVox.org by Nemo. The freeborn Kosa still doth hold the fields his fathers held of old. With club and spear in jocund ranks still hunts the elk by Chumi's banks. Akisi's meads his herds are lowing, on Debe's slopes his garden glowing, where laughing maids at sunset roam to bear the juicy melons home. And striplings from Kaluna's wood bring wild grapes, and the pigeons brood with fragrant hordes of honey bee rifled from the hollow tree. And herdsmen shout from rock to rock, and through the glen the hamlets smoke, and children gambol round the kraal to greet their sires at evening fall, and matrons sweep the cabin floor, and spread the mat beside the door, and with dry faggots wake the flame, to dress the wearied huntsman's game. Bright gleams the fire, its ruddy blaze, and many a dusky visage plays. On forked twigs the game is dressed, the neighbors share the simple feast. The honey mead, the millet ale, flow round, and flow the jest and tale. Wild legends of the ancient day, of hunting feat or warlike fray. And now come smiles, and now come sighs, as mirth and grief alternate rise. Or should a sterner strain awake, like sudden flame in summer brake, burst fiercely forth in battle song, the tale of Amakosa's wrong. Throbs every warrior bosom high, with lightning flashes every eye, and in wild cadence rings the sound of barbed javelins clashing round. But lo, like a broad shield on high, the moon gleams in the midnight sky. 'Tis time to part, the watch dog's bay beside the folds has died away. 'Tis time to rest, the mat is spread, the hardy hunter's simple bed. His wife her dreaming infant hushes on the low cabin's couch of rushes. Softly he draws its store of hide, and stretched by his Gluey's side, sleeps soundly till the peep of dawn wakes on the hill the dappled fawn. Then forth again he gaily bounds, with club and spear and questing hounds. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Makana's Gathering by Thomas Pringle. Read for LibriVox.org by Nemo. Wake, Amakosa, wake, and arm yourselves for war. As coming winds the forest shake, I hear a sound from far. It is not thunder in the sky, nor lions roar upon the hill, but the voice of him who sits on high and bids me speak his will. He bids me call you forth, bold sons of Kahabi, to sweep the white men from the earth and drive them to the sea. The sea which heaved them up at first, for Amakosa's curse and bane, howls for the progeny she nursed, to swallow them again. Hark! 'Tis Ulanga's voice, from Debe's mountain caves. He calls you now to make your choice, to conquer or be slaves. To meet proud Amanglesi's guns, and fight like warriors nobly born, or like Umlau's feeble sons, become the free man's scorn. Then come, ye chieftains bold, with war plumes waving high. Come, every warrior young and old, with club and assegai. Remember how the spoiler's host did through our lands like locusts range, your herds, your wives, your comrades lost. Remember and revenge. Fling your broad shields away, bootless against such foes, but hand to hand we'll fight today, and with their bayonets close. Grasp each man short his stabbing spear, and when to battle's edge we come, rush on their ranks in full career, and to their hearts strike home. Wake, Amakosa, wake, and muster for the war. The wizard wolves from Keisi's break, the vultures from afar, are gathering at Ulanga's call, and follow fast our westward way, for well they know, ere evening fall, they shall have glorious prey. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. The Incantation by Thomas Pringle. Read for LibriVox.org by Nemo. Halfway up Indola climbing hangs the wizard forest old, from whose shade is heard the chiming of a streamlet clear and cold. With a mournful sound it gushes from its cavern in the steep. Then at once its wailing hushes in a lakelet dark and deep. Standing by the dark blue water, robed in panther speckled hide. Who is she? Jalusa's daughter, bold Makana's widowed bride. Stern she stands, her left hand clasping by the arm her wondering child. He, her shaggy mantle grasping, gazes up with aspect wild. Thrice in the soft fount of nursing, with sharp steel she pierced a vein. Thrice the white oppressor cursing, while the blood gushed forth amain. Wide upon the dark blue water, sprinkling thrice the crimson tide, spoke Jalusa's high-souled daughter, bold Makana's widowed bride. Thus into the demon's river blood instead of milk I fling. Here, Ulanga, great life-giver, here, Togu, avenging king. Thus the mother's feelings tender in my breast I stifle now. Thus I summon you to render vengeance for the widow's vow. Who shall be the chief's avenger? Who the champion of the land? Boy, the pale son of the stranger is devoted to thy hand. He who wields the bolt of thunder witnesses thy mother's vow. He who rends the rocks asunder to the task shall train thee now. When thy arm grows strong for battle, thou shalt sound Makana's cry, till 10,000 shields shall rattle to war club and assegai. Then, when like hailstorm in harvest on the foe sweeps thy career, shall Ulanga whom thou servest make them stubble to thy spear. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Kaffir Commando by Thomas Pringle, read for LibriVox.org by Gary Day. Hark, heard ye the signals of triumph afar? 'Tis our Kaffir Commando returning from war. The voice of their laughter comes loud on the wind, nor heed they the curses that follow behind. For who cares for him, the poor Xhosa that wails, where the smoke rises dim from yon desolate vales, that wails for his little ones killed in the fray, and his herds by the colonist carried away? Or who cares for him that once pastured this spot, where his tribe is extinct, and their story forgot? As many another, ere 20 years pass, will only be known by their bones in the grass. And the sons of the Kazi, the Kay, the Gareep, with the Gunja and Gona, in silence shall sleep, for England hath spoke in her tyrannous mood, and the edict is written in African blood. Dark Kata is howling, the eager jackal, as the lengthening shadows more drearily fall, shrieks forth his hymn to the horned moon, and the lord of the desert will follow him soon. And the tiger wolf laughs in his bone-strewed brake, as he calls on his mate and her cubs to awake. And the panther and leopard come leaping along, all hymning to Hecate a festival song. For the tumult is over, the slaughter hath ceased, and the vulture hath bidden them all to the feast. Thomas Pringle. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. The Rock of Reconcilement by Thomas Pringle, read for LibriVox.org by Gary Day. A rugged mountain, round whose summit proud the eagle sailed, or heaved the thundercloud, poured from its cloven breast a gurgling brook, which down the grassy glades its journey took, oft bending round to lave with rambling tide the groves of evergreens on either side. Fast by this stream, where yet its course was young, and stooping from the heights, the forest flung a grateful shadow o'er the narrow dell, appeared the missionary's hermit cell, woven of wattled boughs and thatched with leaves, the sweet wild jasmine clustering to its eaves. It stood, with its small casement gleaming through, between two ancient cedars. Round it grew clumps of acacias and young orange bowers, pomegranate hedges gay with scarlet flowers, and pale-stemmed fig trees with their fruit yet green, and apple blossoms waving light between. all musical it seemed with humming bees, and bright plumed sugar birds among the trees, fluttering like living blossoms. In the shade of a grey rock that midst the leafy glade stood like a giant sentinel, we found the habitant of this fair spot of ground, a plain, tall Scottish man of thoughtful mien, grave but not gloomy. By his side was seen an ancient chief of Amakosa's race, with javelin armed for conflict or the chase, and seated at their feet upon the sod, a youth was reading from the word of God, of him who came for sinful men to die, of every race and tongue beneath the sky. Unnoticed towards them we softly stepped. Our friend was wrapped in prayer, the warrior wept. Leaning upon his hand, the youth read on. And then we hailed the group, the chieftain's son, training to be his country's Christian guide, and Brownlee and old Ishatsu side by side. Thomas Pringle. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Forester of the Neutral Ground, a South African border ballad, by Thomas Pringle. Read for LibriVox.org by Algie Pug. We met in the midst of the neutral ground, among the hills where the buffalo's haunts are found, and we joined in the chase of the noble game, nor asked each other of nation or name. The buffalo bull wheeled suddenly round, when first from my rifle he felt a wound, and, before I could gain the Umtoka's bank, his horns were tearing my courser's flank. That instant a ball whizzed past my ear, which smote the beast in his fierce career, and the turf was drenched with purple gore, as he fell at my feet with a bellowing roar. The stranger came galloping up to my side, and greeted me with a bold huntsman's pride. Full blithely we feasted beneath a tree. Then out spoke the forester, Arend Plessis. "Stranger, we now our true comrades sworn. Come, pledge me thy hand while we quaff the horn. Thou art an Englishman good, and thy heart is free, and 'tis therefore I'll tell my story to thee. A Hemerad of Camdaboo was my sire. He had flocks and herds to his heart's desire, and bondmen and maidens to run at his call, and 7 stout sons to be heirs of all. When we had grown up to man's estate, our father bid each of us choose a mate, of fatherland blood, from the black taint free, as became a Dutch burgher's proud degree. My brothers they rode to the Boven land, and each came with a fair bride back in his hand. But I brought the handsomest bride of them all, brown Dinah, the bondmaid who sat in our hall. My father's displeasure was stern and still. My brothers flamed forth like a fire on the hill, and they said that my spirit was mean and base, to lower myself to the servile race. I bade them rejoice in their herds and flocks, and their pale-faced spouses with flaxen locks, while I claimed for my share, as the youngest son, brown Dinah alone with my horse and gun. My father looked black as a thundercloud. My brothers reviled me and railed loud, while their young wives laughed with disdainful pride, while Dinah in terror clung close to my side. Her ebon eyelashes were moistened with tears, as she shrank abashed from their venomous jeers. But I bade her look up like a burgher's wife, next day to be mine, if God granted life. At dawn brother Roloff came galloping home from his pastures, his courser all covered with foam. "'Tis the Bushman," he shouted. "Haste, friends, to the spoor. Bold Arend, come help with your long-barrelled roer." Far o'er Brunchi's hoogty we followed, in vain. At length surly Roloff cried, "Slacken your rein, we have quite lost the track." Hans replied with a smile, then my dark-boding spirit suspected their guile. I flew to our fathers, brown Dinah was sold, and they laughed at my rage as they counted the gold. But I leapt on my horse with my gun in my hand, and sought my lost love in the far Boven land. I found her, I bore her from Gaurit's fair glen, through lone Zitzikamma, by forest and fen, to these mountains at last like wild pigeons we flew, far, far from the cold hearts of proud come to boo. I've read our rude shailing by Gola's green wood, where the chase of the deer yields me pastime and food. With my Dinah and children I dwell here alone, without other comrades, and wishing for none. I fear not the Bushmen from Winterberg's fell, nor dread I the Kaffir from Cat River's dell. By justice and kindness I've conquered them both, and the sons of the desert have pledged me their troth. I fear not the leopard that lurks in the wood, the lion I dread not, though raging for blood. My hand it is steady, my aim it is sure, and the boldest must bend to my long-barreled roer. The elephant's buff coat my bullet can pierce, and the giant rhinoceros, headlong and fierce. Gnu, eland, and buffalo furnish my board, when I feast my allies like an African lord. And thus from my kindred and colour exiled, I live like old Ishmael, lord of the wild, and follow the chase with my hounds and my gun, nor ever repent the bold course I have run. But sometimes there sinks on my spirit a dread of what may befall when the turf's on my head. I fear for poor Dinah, for brown Rhodomond, and dimple-faced Carol, the sons of the bond. Then tell me, dear stranger, from England the free, what good tidings bring'st thou for Erin Plessie? Shall the edict of mercy be sent forth at last, to break the harsh fetters of colour and cost? End of section. This recording is in the public domain.
Section 23 of Poetry of South Africa. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Algie Pug, Unread Pages, and Newgate Novelist. The Emigrant's Cabin at the Cape, an Epistle in Rhyme, by Thomas Pringle. Where the young river from its wild ravine winds pleasantly through Eildon's pastures green, with fair acacias waving on its banks, and willows bending o'er in graceful ranks, and the steep mountain rising close behind, to shield us from the Snowberg's wintry wind, appears my rustic cabin, thatched with reeds, upon a knoll amid the grassy meads, and, close beside it, looking o'er the lea, our summer seat beneath an umbra tree. This morning, musing in that favourite seat, my hound, old Yarrow, dreaming at my feet, I pictured you, sage Fairbairn, at my side, by some good genie wafted o'er the tide. And after cordial greetings, thus went on in fancy's dream our colloquy, dear John.
Enter, my friend, our beehive cottage door. No carpet hides the humble earthen floor, but it is hard as brick, clean swept and cool. You must be wearied. Take that jointed stool, or on this couch of leopard skin recline. You'll find it soft. The workmanship is mine.
Why, Pringle, yes, your cabin's snug enough, though oddly shaped. But as for household stuff, I only see some rough-hewn sticks and spars, a wicker cupboard filled with flasks and jars, a pile of books on rustic framework placed, hides of ferocious beasts that roam the waste, whose kindred prowl, perchance, around this spot, the only neighbours I suspect you've got. Your furniture, rude from the forest cut, however, is in keeping with the hut. This couch feels pleasant. Is't with grass you stuff it? So far I should not care with you to rough it. But, pardon me for seeming somewhat rude, in this wild place, how manage ye for food?
You'll find, at least, my friend, we do not starve. There's always mutton, if naught else, to carve. And even of luxuries we have our share. And here comes dinner, the best bill of fare, dressed by that nut-brown maiden, Feitcheval.
To the Hottentot girl.
Maid, roept uw vrouw net middag mal.
To Fairbairn.
which means the ladies into dinner call.
Enter Mrs. Pringle and her sister, who welcome their guest to Africa. The party take their seats round the table, and conversation proceeds.
First, here's our broad-tailed mutton, small and fine, the dish on which 9 days in 10 we dine. Next, roast springbok, spiced and larded well, a haunch of hartebest from hindhooper fell, a pow which beats your Norfolk turkey hollow, corhan and guinea fowl and pheasant follow, kid carbonaceous, a la Hottentot, broiled on a forked twig, and peppered hot with chili pods, a dish called Kaffir stew, smoked ham of porcupine and tongue of gnu. This fine white household bread, of Margaret's baking, comes from an oven, too, of my own making, scooped from an anthill. Did I ask before if you would taste this brawn of forest boar? Our fruits, I must confess, make no great show. Trees, grafts, and layers must have time to grow. But there's green roasted maize, and pumpkin pie, and wild asparagus. Or will you try a slice of watermelon, fine for drouth, like sugared ices melting in the mouth? Here, too, are wild grapes from our forest vine, not void of flavour, though unfit for wine. And here comes dried fruit I had quite forgot, from fair Glenavon, Margaret, is it not? Figs, almonds, raisins, peaches. Wit by Swat brought this huge sackful from kind Mrs. Hart, enough to load a Covent Garden cart. But come, let's crown the banquet with some wine. What will you drink? Champagne, port, claret, stein? Well, not to tease you with a thirsty jest, lo, here's our only vintage stands confessed, in that half alm upon the spigot rack, and certes, though it keeps the old cup schmack, the wine is light and racy, so we learn, in laughing mood, to call it Cape Saturn. Let's pledge this cup to all our friends, fair bairn.
Well, I admit, my friend, your dinner's good. Springbok and porcupine are dainty food. That lordly pow was roasted to a turn, and in your country fruits, and Cape Sauterne, the wildish flavours really not unpleasant, and I may say the same of gnu and pheasant. But Mrs. Pringle, shall I have the pleasure? Miss Brown, some wine? These quaffs are quite a treasure. What, leave us now? I've much to ask of you, but since you will go, for an hour adieu.
Exeunt ladies.
But Pringle, à nos moutons revenons, qui bono's still the burden of my song. Cut off, with these good ladies, from society, of savage life you soon must feel satiety. The mind requires fit exercise and food, not to be found mid Afric's desert rude. And what avail the spoils of wood and field, the fruits or vines your fertile valleys yield, without that higher zest to crown the whole, the feast of reason and the flow of soul? Food, shelter, fire suffice for savage men, but can the comforts of your wattled den, your sylvan fare and rustic tasks suffice for one who once seemed finer joys to prize? When erst, like Virgil's swains, we used to sing of streams and groves, and all that sort of thing, the spot we meant for our poetic den was always within reach of books and men. By Classic-esque, for instance, or Tweedside, with gifted friends within an easy ride, besides our college chum, the parish priest, and the said den with 6 good rooms at least. Here, save for her who shares and soothes your lot, you might as well squat in a Kaffir's cot. Come now, be candid, tell me, my dear friend, of your aspiring aims, is this the end? Was it for nature's wants, fire, shelter, food, you sought this dreary soulless solitude? Broke off your ties with men of cultured mind, your native land, your early friends resigned? As if, believing with insane Rousseau refinement the chief cause of human woe, you meant to realise that raver's plan, and be a philosophic Bosius man. Be frank, confess the fact you cannot hide. You sought this den from disappointed pride.
You have missed the mark, fair bairn. My breast is clear, nor wild romance nor pride allured me here. Duty and destiny with equal voice constrained my steps. I had no other choice. The hermit lodge in some vast wilderness, which sometimes poets sigh for, I confess, were but a sorry lot. In real life one needs a friend, the best of friends, a wife. But with a home thus cheered, however rude, there's naught so very dull in solitude, even though that home should happen to be found, like mine, in Africa's remotest bound. I have my farm and garden, tools and pen, my schemes for civilizing savage men, our Sunday service, till the Sabbath bell shall wake its welcome chime in Linden Dell. Some duty or amusement, grave or light, to fill the active day from morn till night. And thus 2 years so lightsomely have flown that still we wonder when the week is gone. We have at times our troubles, it is true, passing vexations and privations too. But were it not for woman's tender frame, these our annoyances I scarce would name. For though perchance they plague us while they last, they only serve for jests when they are past. And then your notion that we're quite exiled from social life amid these mountains wild accords not with the fact, as you will see on glancing o'er this district map with me.
End of section 23.
Section 24 of Poetry of South Africa. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Volunteers of England by a Colonist. Reverend H. H. Dugmore, July 2nd, 1861. Read for LibriVox.org by Trudy B. Voice, August 31st, Narragansett, Rhode Island. The Volunteers of England by a Colonist. Celum non a ni mum mutant qui trans mare curunt. A trumpet blast is pealing mongst Albion's echoing hills, arousing every feeling that patriot's bosom thrills. O'er hill and dale resounding, it sends its loud alarm, the freeman's war cry sounding, for hearths and altars, arm! A despot's monster legions are on their haughty way. A despot's warlike regions send forth their proud array to raise the broad foundations of freedom's temple shrine, and from among the nations to blot her name divine. From peasants' lowly dwelling, from barons' ancient hall, with bosoms proudly swelling, rise, sons of England, all! From Cambria's vales of beauty, Britons of Britain, come, prompt at the call of duty, with strong right arm, strike home! From every mist-clad mountain, sons of the hardy north, from lake and glen and fountain, come in your manhood forth. From eastern fen and plainland, from western tarn and fell, from islet, rock, and mainland, the nation's gatherings swell. We come! In tones of thunder, rings echoing round the land. We come! And scenes of wonder burst forth on every hand. Workmen have sprung to warriors, herdsmen to heroes grown, and rise in living barriers around Victoria's throne. Peasant and peer are joining, yeoman with baron stands, strength, wealth, and rank combining, and nerving hearts and hands. Loyal, if horny-headed, industry's thousands come, in brothers compact banded, for altar, throne, and home. Hear it, to heaven ascending, a nation's solemn vow, while at his altar bending, to God alone they bow. No foreign home invading, we strike no foreign throne, but, God from heaven aiding, to death we guard our own. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Dear Old Land by Reverend H. H. Dugmore. Read for LibriVox.org by Algie Pug. A glorious land is the dear old land, our father's island home, though its moorlands are cold when the snow lies deep, and the mists round the sides of its mountains creep, and the waves are white when the March winds sweep, as they dash on its cliffs in foam. 'Tis changed since the days when the Druid old was seen in the forest glades, when the wolf was tracked to his mountain den, and the wild boar roused in the gloomy glen, and the chase was a sport to test the men that ranged through the leafy glades. Where the victim bled on the altar stone, or died in a fiery grave, where wildwoods sheltered the outlaw's band, where the salt marsh mingled sea and land, proud mansions rise, or cities stand, or golden harvests wave. A story of fame has the dear old land, and it dates from the days gone by, when right with might the strife began, and freedom's voice with the fire-cross ran, and the wakened serf rose up, a man to conquer his rights or die. There were hardy souls in the dear old land, in the stern dark days of yore, when the arm could do what the heart could dare, and the threats of a tyrant were empty air, and they made him tremble in his lair, as they roused themselves in power. A story of fame has the dear old land, and it is not ended yet. Wherever the sea's wild waves have curled, her fleets proudly sail with flag unfurled, and many a lesson they've taught the world, which the world will not forget. And tell me the land, or the earth's broad face, where her braves have not been found, from east to west, with a glorious sun, the sound of their drums when the day is done, from realm to realm goes rolling on, unceasing the wide world round. But the warrior's fame has stains of blood, and it raises the widow's wail. Look we then on the glories whose milder rays will bring no tears to the eyes that gaze, whose trophies of triumph, whose songs of praise the tenderest heart may hail. There are spirits of might in the dear old land that have seized on a giant grim, and the burdens which man and beast had borne with sweat of brow and frame hard worn, from morn till night, and from night till morn, they have boldly laid on him. He raises the load from the deep dark mine, he speeds the loom amain, he wields the ponderous hammer's force, gives the ship 'gainst wind and tide free course, and snorts in the breath of the iron horse, that nor weariness feels, nor pain. 'Tis glorious to ride at his headlong pace 'mongst the crags of the forest glen, to skim o'er the moorlands bleak and wide, to pierce through the rock-ribbed mountain side, as he plays with the work, in giant pride, of twice 10,000 men. There are spirits of power in the dear old land, who can bid the lightning speed from north to south, from east to west, a courier swift that asks no rest, but instant writes command or quest, where the ends of the world may read. There are spirits of light in the dear old land, who rejoice when the truth makes free, who shout when a nation wakes in might, and seizes its long denied birthright, and prisoned souls burst forth to light. Oh, glorious sight to see! There are spirits of love in the dear old land, who weep for their kindred's wrongs, and who work as they weep in patient power, through the livelong day, through the midnight hour, while rescued victims blessings shower from wondering grateful tongues. Then hail, all hail, thou dear old land, where our fathers' ashes lie. There are sunbeams bright on this far-off shore, there are starlit skies when the day is o'er, and we never shall tread thy greensward more, but we'll love thee till we die. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Section 26 of Poetry of South Africa. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Funeral in the Abbey, read for LibriVox.org by Doreen. List, there is music sounding, not airy strains that lead the mazy dance, not trumpet tones that stir the warrior's soul, but soft and slow and solemn as it swells and rolls afar and dies, midst its own echoes, from vaulted roof and lofty aisle dim lighted, where clustering columns rise and rainbow rays gleam in their varied glory o'er the scene. 'Tis in the sacred fane where sleeps the dust of those whom Britain loves to honour, who shed living honour by their deeds on her, challenging place upon the rolls of fame. Sages and saints and sons of song lie there, wresters of nature's secrets, senators whose thunderous eloquence could awe the world, patriots whose lifeblood for their country flowed, war chiefs who led her armies unto glory, statesmen with eye far-reaching who could thread diplomacy's dark mazes, and the helm with firm hand grasping steer the nation's bark through storms of strife to honour and to peace. And royalty's proud dust lies smouldering there, 'neath sculptured marbles or midst gilded shrines, while high o'erhead the ancient banners droop. Monarchs of other days, of other ages, successive generations of the great, who ruled the realm of England as she grew, from isolate obscurity to greatness, that with a fame undying fills the world. Lo there! An open grave, and heads are bare and bent, and bosoms heave, and tears are falling. From youthful womanhood, from hoary age, men weep as slowly through the reverend throne is borne what hides from view a shrivelled form, wasted and featureless, yet round that bier stands silently the great of many lands. Britain's high-born stand there, and kings of men of other realms stand there by envoy. There the sons of science gather, and the friends of light and liberty. The church's messengers look on in sadness there, and a vast throng crowding around sigh forth a nation's sympathy. Tokens of reverent love, azaleas wreaths, laurel and myrtle with fair flowers entwined, bright immortals, branches of Afric's palm, symbol of triumph e'en in death, are there, and honour to the honoured, Britain's queen, sign a respect and admiration sends, her own and royal daughter's funeral gifts to deck the bier. And who is it that thus draws to himself in death the eyes of nations? Is it some warrior leader who has died in a proud hour of victory, and wept by a whole people's tears lies down to rest? Or is it one who in nation's peril has earned a nation's gratitude by wise and warning counsels in her council halls? Is it a prince has died, that royalty should sigh her grief and nobles weep around? 'Tis Livingstone that name 1,000 tongues through years of hope and fear alternate uttered, while he who bore it deep in Afric's wilds, solving her mystery of ages, trod her deserts, traced her streams, a pioneer of science, commerce, liberty and mercy, a weaver boy thus honoured. Wherefore not? He wore indeed no ducal coronet, nor dwelt in lordly hall, but stamp of rank he needed not, while nature's gold of manhood, solid and pure and bright, shone through his soul. The weaver boy in youthful prime had yearned o'er Afric's sons enslaved, for his own soul by grace of God emancipated, longed to free from bondage body, soul, and spirit of those who were immortal as himself, and co-redeemed though dark in mind as hue. He bore the crossed standard o'er the plains where wandering tribes by Moffat gathered dwelt, and preached the cross's story in a tone strange to his early years. But as he stood and looked to regions yet beyond, where white man's foot had never trod, fresh longings filled his soul. Millions dwell yonder, all unknown to us. They live and die in darkness, and they groan in bitter bondage, where no ray of hope shines through the gloom. I go to find the way, let others follow. And he went, alone, and braved the desert blast, the serpent's folds, the jungle ambush, and the lion's fang. He braved the fevered swamp, the tropic sun, the mountain torrent, and a savage spear. Barbarian wonder followed in his steps, and treachery shrank before the magic power of Christian kindness, single and unarmed. He vanished from our sight, and time rolled on while he was lost from view. At length was heard rumor of strange discoveries. Lakes unknown had spread their silver waters to his gaze, and mighty streams through vales all green and glorious poured their vast floods o'er thundering cataracts, where men had deemed were naught but deserts drear. From ocean through to ocean, tropic realms were traversed with unfaltering footsteps, till regions before unknown with all their wonders rose into view, and hidden tribes disclosed their being and their need. He rested then awhile, and told his countrymen the story of his lone wanderings over Afric's wilds. Men wondered while they listened, as they heard of grassy slopes and waving woods, and sparkling waters, of birds of beauty, flowers of gorgeous hues, and there where they had pictured a Sahara, with whelming sandstorms, and the death blast dire of Red Simoom. He rested not for long. The spell was on him, and his work not done, and now he led a band, who bore the light of truth divine, to chase away the darkness that brooded over regions bright and fair. Where man alone is vile, 'twas where he laid the partner of his bosom, who had shared the joys and sorrows of his younger years. A grave by Shire's waters, far away from home and kindred, holds the precious dust. And now his ties to earth are loosened, now the beckoning hand that calls him onward still is seen more plainly, and he follows. He would lift the cloud from regions still unknown, heard of but through the victims of a vile traffic in human blood. His soul was fired with ardent resolution to destroy or perish in the contest. The dire cursed the blighted nations when they might be blessed. A vision rose before him. These fair realms, yielding earth's teeming increase in exchange for varied handiwork of other lands, and open-handed commerce giving boons to honest industry, while crushing down the cursed man-stealer's trade, the light of truth, of Christian truth, for mind and heart and life, for family and nation, blending with prismatic rays by science shed around, the darkness melting, heathen orgies, vile yielding the place to worship bright and pure, songs of salvation where the savage yells, slavery of mind and body killed together, and freedom smiling glad over all the land. This was his vision, and it might be true, and he would labor that it might to death. Again, yet once again, the word farewell, a last farewell. We heard his voice no more. The years rolled on, and on he came not back. Tidings indeed there were, but far between, like angels' visits. Were those tidings brief, that still he lived and toiled, the white man lone, who with such wondrous spell o'er savage minds, and with charmed life held pain and death at bay. And then came silence. Has he sunk at last? And then came other tidings. He is dead, and dead by murderous hands. And hearts were chilled with horror and stood still. But some said, No, not thus will that brave spirit pass away. Africa knows his errand. 'Tis not so, nor was it so. A kindred spirit sought and found him, and with all the old fire burning, but with the censer now well nigh consumed. Come home with me and rest. Well hast thou earned the right upon thy laurels to repose. The world is yearning o'er thee. Come and rest. Not yet, not yet. There is still work to do. Let me but show the way to Afric's heart. Leave me to trace the water path by which old England's wide-winged seabirds shall ascend, bearing her light and liberty and peace, to roll away the dark reproach of ages. And then my work is done, and Stanley left him. And then the enfeebled frame, once more essaying to climb the mountain, pierced the forest's gloom, stemmed the swift torrent, crossed the lake's broad breast, and waded the sedgy marsh, gave way at last. But still the spirit o'er the flesh triumphant registered till the hand had lost its cunning. The record precious of that life's last task, which only death could end. He died alone, none saw the spirit part. Thus had he willed to die, alone with God. The morning greeting of his faithful band no longer met the welcome kind response. The spirit had gone home, and gone in silence, and there knelt lifeless clay. And none were nigh save Afric's swarthy sons, but these had learned to love and reverence him whose life was given a sacrifice for injured Afric's weal, and they would guard his relics e'en in death. They left his heart where fitly it should rest, and bore in reverent hands the faded form, rudely but lovingly embalmed, and after days and weeks and months of weary toil, gave to its kindred their last sacred trust. And there it lies, and thousands stand around to do the martyr honor as he rests. And now his body sinks from mortal sight, midst showers of amaranths and fragrant flowers, that white and pure fall last from loving hands. Buried in peace it lies mongst kindred heroes, while white-robed choristers and organ pealing blend in the final loud triumphant strain, and the high arches echo as they sing, but his soul liveth evermore. End of section 26. A Farewell to English Friends by Doug Moore. Read for LibriVox.org by Doreen. Far, far away, simple but sadly tender, these words unlock the heart's deep springs, and bid its fountains play. What thoughts upon the spirit rush, what feelings from the warm heart gush, while we pause to think on those we love, now far, far away. Far, far away we shall think on happy England, and many a sunny memory will shed its golden ray, and many a welcome and farewell from unforgotten lips will dwell, like music's echoes in our minds, when far, far away. Far, far away, while our sails are proudly swelling, while the breezes bear us onward, and the wild waves round us play, while our prayers rise to heaven above, and ask its care for those we love. Think on us, pray for us, the far, far away. Far, far away, for Afric's sunny fountains, our seabird spreads her snowy wings mid ocean's sparkling spray. Old England's shores are fading fast. One look, the fondest and the last, for we go to die in distant realms, far, far away. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.